Here, what's going on, guys? Make sure that boy Bam Adebayo is about to get paid, and rightfully so, according to multiple sources, which really you don't even need any inside information to know that Bam Adebayo is about to get a bag. Because as Heat vs. Haters pointed out on Twitter, Bam is eligible for a supermax extension worth $245 million across 4 years. Or if he doesn't make an All-NBA team, it would be a 3-year, $165 million extension. I don't even know what I would do with all that money. I'm lying. I would throw it all on a parlay and probably lose it. But I do kind of want to point out the numbers here because regardless, I'll get this out of the way right now. Whether he makes All-NBA team or not, he's worth whatever money he's eligible to get. And I would give him the absolute most money possible. And that does seem to be the pretty common sentiment on Heat Twitter, right? It's very rare to find something that most Heat fans seem to agree about. And this seems to be one of them. I'm not going to say it's all Heat fans because you still got a lot of Heat fans that are concerned with Bam's aggressiveness and lack of an offensive skill set, they might say. We might get into some of the negatives later. But for the most part, I think we all agree Bam does deserve his extension. I don't think that he'll get the $245 million supermax because just looking at some of the guys who will probably make the All-NBA team, I don't think Bam can get on there, especially now with the new rule that it's now positionless. It's literally the top 15 players in basketball, right? Because you got first team, second team, third team, 5 guys on a team, no positions. If it was like it was way back in the day, you had to have a center. That's how you had guys like DeAndre Jordan make the team, bum ass. And then they changed the rule where it was front court, two backcourt guys, 3 front court guys. And now they completely changed it where it's literally positionless, right? So I just looked up some people's predictions online. For the most part, they look something like this. If y'all are on the audio podcast side, come over to the YouTube at Anthony DiNardo. I got all the graphics here, but you can see looking at these 15 names here. I mean, Giannis, Luka, Shea, Jokic, Jason Tatum. Even though Tatum's a bum, he will probably make the first team with the rest of those guys. The second team, Jalen Brunson, AD, Ant, LeBron, Kawhi. On the second team, Kawhi, I was surprised to hear played the 65 games, minimum to make this because, by the way, that's another new rule. So in years past, you would have had guys like Donovan Mitchell, Joel Embiid. They're not eligible either because they didn't meet the 65 games. Surprisingly, Kawhi somehow made it, even though it seems like he still never plays. He played 68 games, so he just barely made it. But then on the third team, this guy has Curry, Durant, Tyrese Halliburton, Sabonis, and Zion Williamson. If people were going to look at any name here and say who Bam should replace, they might look at Sabonis just because he's another big man. But I can't, while I do think Bam is a better player, I can't deny the numbers that Sabonis put up this year. I mean, like 19 points, 13 rebounds, 8 assists. He either broke or came close to the record for most consecutive games with a double-double. The Kings had the same record as the Heat, but they were in a much more difficult Western Conference, of course. The numbers for DeMontis are hard to ignore, even though he didn't even make the All-Star team, but he might make All-NBA. We see stupid stuff like that happen all the year. That happened to Goran Dragic one year, right? Back when he was with the Suns, he made the All-NBA without making the All-Star team. So the voting for this stuff is kind of stupid. I do think Bam Adebayo is better than... is he better? He might only be better than Sabonis on this list here. I'm not going to lie to you. But regardless, I don't think he or the team quite did enough to deserve an All-NBA here. And I know it's not all about offense. Bam Adebayo is the best defender in the NBA. We're going to get into that. But he likely won't make All-NBA, which means that he will only be eligible for $165 million, right? Only. I'm sorry, Bam. What are you going to do now? But Bam Adebayo this year did still have an incredible season. 19 points per game, 10 rebounds. You'd love to see those rebounding numbers get up. And about 4 assists a night. Played 71 games. Shot 52% from the field this season. And actually 36% from 3, which is way higher than anything else he's done in his past. It was only on 0.6 attempts, right? But again, that's also substantially higher than his previous seasons, right? So the 52% from the field is a bit down from what he's done in years past. He's kind of hovered around the 54, 55%. Even last year did break the 20 points per game mark. So he's a point down in that regard as well. But I don't care about the numbers when it comes to Bam, because the eye test shows me that he is an improved player. There is a good reason why his field goal percentage is down slightly, right? He's still over 50%, which is great, right? But the reason his numbers are down is because he's expanding his game. He is no longer just a guy that, obviously when he was drafted, he was sort of just a lob threat, a guy you'd find in the dunker spot. And then last year we saw him expand to the mid-range game. And this year we started to see the three-point line towards the end of the season. But also his mid-range game is becoming more versatile, right? Last season, it was a lot of those, if guys were playing drop coverage, instead of him freezing like a deer in the headlights at the three-point line, top of the key, he would take a dribble in, pull up from that mid-range spot, and really abuse guys like Brook Lopez in that regard. But this year, we're also seeing Bam incorporate some of that mid-range game from the post. He had 0 post game last year whatsoever. And now, while this season his footwork still isn't great and he doesn't have a ton of moves, doesn't really have that jump hook that you'd really like to see him get so he can abuse smaller defenders, he did incorporate like a post fade, even a little bit of dream shakes, or maybe not dream shakes, but shimmy shakes you'd see out of the post, fall away jumpers. And that is a huge expansion in his game, because he, like I said earlier, he did not operate out of the post at all last season. And I do feel like we saw that quite a bit this season. And again, it's just another step in his continued development as a player. They asked him in the post-game media availability, what is the one thing he wants to improve going into next season? A lot of people thought he would say scoring, right? Like in years past, he said he wants to be a three-point shooter. He said he wants to be a flat-out scorer, right? But this year, he said he wants to be a better communicator / leader on the court. And I thought that was a brilliant answer, because it's very clear now he's obviously the captain of this team. They even asked him about being a captain. What was it like? And he said it sucked, kind of in a half joking matter, one of those where there's a truth to every joke. But he was kind of saying it sucks because it's a lot. It's a big responsibility. But he wasn't complaining about it. He was more so saying it's something that he's going to continue to work on, and he's up for the challenge. That's why he said the one thing he wants to improve on is his on-court leadership and communication, because that is the next step in becoming a great captain. So he's more than willing to take that responsibility, right? Even the fact that he was at the end of season pressers alone tells me he's ready to take that next step as a captain, because Jimmy Butler wasn't there, right? Tyler Hero wasn't there. Those guys didn't want those guys were ducking the smoke. That's how I see it. They were scared to answer the tough questions about a very difficult finish to a pretty difficult season. But you know who wasn't scared? Was Bam Adebayo. He sat there and he took all those questions when he didn't have to, right? It was voluntary. Plenty of other guys didn't show up. Terry Rozier wasn't there. Kevin Love. Now, those guys got their own reasons, but Bam was there. And I respect the hell out of him for that, right? So even outside of all the offensive stuff we saw this season, we talked about the post mid-range. He still had the pull-up midi. The three-point shot was looking great at the end of the season, which I love, by the way. I'd love to see Bam get 1 to 2 up a game. A lot of people say, oh, he's still big and athletic. He needs to stop shooting so many jump shots. I personally felt like he had a nice balance, right? Like, I don't feel like he was going too far away from the inside stuff. We still saw him be aggressive at times enough where if he had a smaller guy in there, he'd be able to kind of body his way in, go up with a dunk. And I still feel like he took advantage of the athleticism that he has. Now, I'm sure he'll have to work on finding a balance between the finesse game and the tough, in the mud, rugged game. He'll still work on finding that balance. But I don't feel like he settled for jumpers too often last season. I think he did a better job of, taking advantage of mismatches when he could. If it was a slower guy on him, he'd blow past him. If it was a smaller guy on him, he'd post him up. So I kind of like the balance that Bam did in that regard last year. But again, outside of all the offensive improvements that we saw this year and that I'm sure we'll see next season, he is still the best defender in the entire NBA. He is, I understand, who won? Rudy Gobert's bum ass won the award. Y'all know I hate him. If you wanted to give it to Wembanyama, I get that too. He'll probably win it the next 10 years. But this season, Bam Adebayo was better than both of those guys. And Bam Adebayo has been better than anyone on defense for the last several years. Rudy Gobert is a good shot blocker, not a good defender. There's a difference. You cannot get played off the court in the playoffs because of your defense and win a defensive player of the year, let alone 4 of them. That's one of my biggest gripes with Rudy Gobert, among many other things, which I don't want to get into. Otherwise, this will be an hour-long video. And I know people say Rudy Gobert's been better on the perimeter this season. That's BS, bro. He is awful. Players' eyes light up. A guard's eyes light up if they're on the 3-point line and they see Rudy Gobert guarding them. You know what happens when Bam Adebayo is guarding guards on the perimeter? He clamps them. He gives them what we call the Bam Adebayo lesson. I've seen him lock up Kyrie Irving, Damian Lillard, Steph Curry. The list goes on and on. The only guy I've really seen cook Bam is Luka, time and time again. But shout out to Luka for that. But outside of that, Bam Adebayo is truly one of the only players in the league that can guard 1 through 5. There's not many of them. Maybe you give credit to guys like Giannis or Ben Simmons of 3 years ago. I don't know, those bigger guys that are still mobile, but there's not many of them. And I know Bam Adebayo's defensive numbers with regards to steals and blocks don't jump out at you, but all you got to do, if you want numbers, all you got to do is look at the Heat's defense when he's on and off the court. Because without him on the court, their defense is abysmal. And meanwhile, you just saw what the Timberwolves did to the Nuggets without Rudy Gobert. They held the Nuggets to like 80 points. So what does that tell you about what kind of impact Gobert has defensively on that team? Bam Adebayo, easily the best defender in the NBA. And for that reason alone, I'd be okay paying him the most money possible. But on top of all that other stuff, he has the offense and he has the leadership that you want to see. And he's really the whole package. There's a reason you hear guys in the organization talk about Bam as the culture carrier. We heard Alonzo Mourning. I remember they played on the Tobin and Leroy show all the time. This was like 4 or 5 years ago. I think it might even been rookie Bam season. They asked Zoe about Bam Adebayo, and Zoe said this guy will be the pillar for this franchise. He will be the face of the team. He will have his jersey retired, and this was after seeing Bam his rookie season. What does that tell you about Bam Adebayo's work ethic, the kind of person that they see him as? And this is Alonzo Mourning. Guys like Udonis Haslem have said the same thing. Even Pat Riley had glowing things to say about Bam in the postseason presser. Those guys are not people that will BS you. If Alonzo Mourning and Pat Riley and Udonis Haslem are saying these kind of things about Bam Adebayo, that means a lot. It means a lot. And Bam Adebayo is a big-time player as well. Obviously, his efficiencies wasn't great in this playoffs, but with no Jimmy, he was asked to do a million things. I think he did the best he possibly could. Over 20 points in every single game. We saw Bam, even back in 2020 versus Celtics, best player in that series. We saw in 2022 when Jimmy missed the game in Boston, Bam Adebayo took over with like 22 and 19. He is a guy that steps up when it's required. He's a big-time player. I can't say enough positive things about Bam Adebayo. And outside of even all that stuff, he's friends with everyone in the league, right? And that is even more important when you consider Team USA is coming up. Training camp is in July, just a couple months here, right? And look at this Team USA roster right here. Look, is there a couple guys here that you might want to see on the Miami Heat, right? Maybe LeBron. I said maybe LeBron leaves, and who knows what the situation with the Lakers is like. Obviously, it's not great. You've heard reports LeBron might stay. He might not. Can't hurt to have Bam Adebayo in his ear. Joel Embiid, we know he's best friends with Jimmy. Maybe he can get a little closer with Bam Adebayo as well. And we know Philly's been struggling of late. Not saying anything happens this season, but a year or two from now, Philly still can't get out of the second round. And Joel says, you know what? Maybe let me go play with my boy Jimmy in the last year of his contract. My boy Bam Adebayo, rising superstar. You got Kevin Durant. We know Kevin Durant is already very close with Bam Adebayo. That's been documented from, the Olympic stuff in the past, right? And then how about this name? Anthony Edwards. Can I interest you in the Ant-Man? We know Ant already loves Spoelstra and vice versa. They don't have enough. They can't say enough nice things about each other, right? Because Spo's obviously coached Ant in the Team USA stuff in the past as well. Let Bam Adebayo get in there. When they over there in the Olympics, let Spo and Bam take Ant out for a little dinner or something. No tampering, just get to know each other a little bit. because while the Timberwolves have been playing very successful of late, they're up 2-1 on the Nuggets at the time of this recording. Maybe they don't get the job done. Maybe they don't get the job done for another 3-4 years and asks out. You never know. We saw something similar with Donovan Mitchell. The Jazz traded him when he was very young. Speaking of Donovan Mitchell, that man is very close with Bam Adebayo too. They are very close friends. So you're telling me the Miami Heat, 4 years from now, they could have the Avengers. They got Ant-Man, Spider-Man, all led by Captain Bam America. Oh, forget the championships. I need to see that roster just for the promo. The Avengers X Miami Heat promo. Oh, that would be glorious. So all of that being said, give Bam his money. And I don't think there will be a debate. Maybe the only kind of pushback you get is there's been a lot of conversation. Does Jimmy Butler get jealous if Bam Adebayo gets his money immediately and Jimmy does not? I don't think so. I think Jimmy's a very smart guy, and I think he's a guy that wants to earn what he's given. That's the vibe I get from him. And I'm sure Jimmy wants his money, and he wants it now. And to a certain point, it's deserved. I had a video about that two videos ago. I think he understands the hesitancy to give him his money versus Bam Adebayo. When you consider the age, when you consider the availability, right? Bam's played over 70 games the last 2 seasons. The year before that's when he had the broken thumb, but then he was very healthy pretty much every season before that. I think Jimmy understands that. And Jimmy has been on record time and time again saying how much he loves it here. And when we've heard Jimmy in past destinations, he's been vocal, but not about how much he loves his current situation. So I don't think there's any concern about Jimmy leaving one way or another. And I think he overall would be very happy for Bam, because if you hear Zoe and UD talk about Bam's work ethic, Jimmy loves that as well. Anyways, that's all I got to say for this video. I want to read all of y'all comments down below. Would you give Bam his money? And if you do you have any concerns? Are you concerned that maybe he isn't aggressive enough? Which I get that point. That's something I think he's got better at as well. And if you wouldn't give him his money, let me know why down below. But overall, thank you guys for watching. And make sure to like and subscribe to the video, because I do appreciate it a lot. And I have a pretty well edited Tyler Hero video coming out very soon. So stay tuned for that. I'll leave y'all with that. Peace out.
Look, pull up in your city tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.